Hey traders, welcome back to another one of my videos. I'm super excited today to talk about Aussie Yen, AUDJPY on the 1 hour chart here. I've got a long position that I shared with members, and I'm sure that some of you guys watching who are VIP members inside of the A1 trading community, we talked quite a bit about this trade, either in the chat rooms or just from my alert. But I basically sent out a trade here on the long side on AUDJPY. You can actually see I'm long here right now, and it's going very well so far, but I wanted to talk about why I'm in this trade and kind of step through this trade as it plays out. So whether this trade is a winner or a loser, I don't care. I still like this setup. I think that it was a good one, and I'm going to watch it play out. So if it's a loser, hopefully, we can gain some positivity out of it. We can learn some lessons. We can talk about that. And if it's a winner, then we'll let it run and let it continue to the upside. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk first about the entry, and then I'm going to talk about where my stops and my targets for this sort of trade are, and we'll kind of break that down piece by piece here in the first video. So what I want to talk about first is the entry here on AUDJPY. This was a short-term trade. I'll actually see if I can pull it up here on the other screen. Okay, so here is the actual trade that I sent out to VIP members. I shared AUDJPY on the 1 hour chart. I basically said, putting a buy limit at 70.876, right? And then putting a stop and a target on there. So what I'm going to do here is basically talk about the entry and the reasoning behind this. Now, if I actually pull up the picture, this kind of actually gives you trade reasoning for itself. This previous level of resistance was a big one, right? Price rallied very hard, but we basically found a bunch of resistance, and then price pulled back and formed a higher low right here, continuing the overall uptrend. This was pretty textbook kind of long side trending, right? So we were trending to the upside very, very strong here. And as price decided to retest this area here, this is basically where I wanted to get long. So we'll go back, we'll take a look. This is basically the alert that was sent out to VIP members. I shared that. Price pulling back to a key support zone plus a trend line level, looking for the trend continuation to the previous high. Almost exclusively a technical play here. I love this setup. This is one of my long-term favorite setups in the market. I actually have a little bit more detail that I want to add to this. So let's go take a look at it actually on the charts. So if we zoom out here and we draw in, here we can see there's the trade setup, right, that I took. So I actually went long yesterday, right around here. I was in the office yesterday and we were doing a bunch of things, so I didn't get to film the actual entry, unfortunately. But I took a long trade right here and basically picked up a decent sized position, nothing huge, but a decent sized position here long on AUDJPY. Again, recent resistance was a big factor for why I actually took a long trade, because when we broke through that resistance, that same level became potential support. And so as price came down to this area, I actually entered specifically on this candle right here. So what you'll notice is that we actually had some kind of weird, funky candle before it, right? If we zoom in a little bit, and this is actually what really caught my attention initially with the trade, and then I realized that there was a solid level of support here. But basically, this candle right here had some weird indecision, right? Basically went back and forth indecisively for 1 full hour, okay? So price tried to jump up, it failed. It tried to go lower, it failed. Okay, that's what basically happened on this move. And so at that point, I said, hey, you know what? We're at a key level of support in the green zone. We're in a dominant uptrend. We have a lot of momentum to the upside, and things are positive in the US stock markets right now, which in some ways is somewhat correlated to AUDJPY. Why is that? Well, quick breakdown. If we take a look at AUDJPY, right? In good times, a lot of times people will buy things like the Aussie, which is a little bit more of a risk on currency, and they'll sell things like the yen, which causes this pair overall to move upwards, okay? And so that's a fundamental bias that I currently have due to the stock market. Combining multiple markets is something that a lot of times I do in my analysis as part of my bias towards one direction or the other. So with that said, I decided to take the long trade here at that level of support. And I initially actually sent out a target right here. Now I still do have a target. I've removed it though, because I want to scale out of this position if it does get up there. So what I mean by that is if we see the price run up to this level, then what you'll probably see me do is close part of the position or close it. I took it on 2 accounts, so I'll probably close it on the other account. And on this account, the one that I've got here, I specifically did not put a target there. So the reasoning behind that is I want to let this position run as much as possible, okay? What I mean more specifically by that is that if price decides to continue to chug up, then I'm gonna use structure to actually trail a stop here. So I've got my stop down here. I will drag that one up and I'll move it into profit if we continue to see a rally. But here's the thing about moving trailing stops. A lot of times people try and trail their stops right away. My personal opinion is if I'm gonna trail stops, I'm gonna let it move a little bit. Right now we're trading at what? What is that, roughly a 1-to-1. So that means that we've moved the same distance from our stop loss to the current price that we're at. If we get a little bit higher, maybe if we reach this level here, then what I'm gonna do is probably trail stops, okay? That's probably the point where I will look to trail stops. That's, of course, if we actually get there. Now, it's very possible that price could just roll over and tag us out for a loss. That is still possible, and I don't want to rush. Again, I want to give this trade the chance to consolidate and to chop around a little bit before it decides to move up if it's going to do that. So a lot of times people, might say, well, Nick, why don't you just move your stops to break even right now? And I guess I could do that, but again, I want to give this trade the best chance that it has. I would not be surprised if price did something like this. Right? We're still kind of choppy right now. So I don't want to get stopped out just because price comes back to my entry. I'm still willing to take a loss. I'm not going to be arrogant about this. If price decides to roll over, we take a loss and we're done, and I'll still upload this video because, again, losses are beneficial, I think, to a lot of you guys out there watching, and also beneficial for me to address and talk about on camera. Mentally, it kind of helps me to talk about my trades, even the losers, because it kind of just gives me a chance to reflect and be honest with myself about what happened, right? You can all day long tell yourself how good of a trader you are if you only ever look at your winners and then you just close out and don't look at your losers and you ignore them or whatever, right? You have to address your losers as a trader. It's big. It's really, really important. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to come back to this trade as things progress further. If they go well, then we'll trail stops, and if they go wrong, we'll stop out and we'll deal with the trade and we'll talk about it. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon with an update. Okay, traders, a little update here on AUDJPY. So the price is moving in our favor very nicely. You can see in the last couple hour bars, we've had a couple really solid green moves in our favor, where we've also seen just recently a little bit of a doji kind of pin bar looking thing where price basically has rejected, but fortunately it actually tagged right near our take profit that I had set in the group. So what I'm going to do is I'll pull up our group message just once more, and what we had posted was actually a take profit here of 71.742. So let's see if that one actually did get hit. 71.742 should be right around here. So we did just barely tag our take profit. On the other account, we already closed this out. We hit this level here, which was a key level of resistance previously. So I kind of just wanted to close out some of the trade there, which I did again close out on the other account. But on this account, as I mentioned before, I'm going to stick to the plan. The plan here is now to trail stops and to let this trade run. Now what you'll see is I've actually applied a 20 period simple moving average, and this is what I'm going to do to trail the stop here. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 20 period simple moving average, which is headed in the right direction at this point. Price is above that price. As long as we are trending above this 20 period moving average, I want to stay in the trade. I want to let this thing run as much as I can. Now, I know there are going to be some keyboard warriors if price decides to roll over and stop us out. There are always people who will say you should trail your stop more, or you should have taken profit at the highs, or you knew it would have done this, you should have just done this, right? The problem is, here on YouTube, I run a YouTube channel, I'm also a trader. There's some conflicting things here because as a YouTuber, you know that you can't operate in hindsight. I'm operating in real time here. I don't know exactly what's gonna happen with the price. But as a viewer, a lot of times people jump to the conclusion because they have hindsight on their sides. They already knew what happened, so they can claim they know, what the right move would have been to do. I don't know what the right move to do here exactly is because I'm not a magician. I'm just a trader, and all I'm doing is managing my risk. So what I'm going to do here is I've decided that, again, on one account, I took the same trade and I closed it for a profit there at that resistance. So that's good. But on this account, I'm going to trail the stop with the 20 period simple moving average. So what I'm going to look for is if price basically comes back and closes underneath or hits my trailing stop, then I'm going to go ahead and be out of the trade. So at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trail my stop up to just below this 20 period moving average at this time. And from here on out, I'm basically going to watch the trade and move it using a combination of either structure and the 20 period moving average. And I'm going to let this trade run as much as possible. Now, I do, again, want to add one more thing about trailing stops here, is that sometimes it will make you look dumb to trail your stops, because you'll say, well, hey, I could have taken profit right here, but instead I got trailed out and took the loss here. Whatever you do in trading, and it doesn't matter if you take profit at the highs, it doesn't matter if you use a trailing stop, there will be people that if you show them what you've decided to do, they will criticize your decision, because there's always a better way to do it in hindsight. So again, if I trail my stop here, then I could be giving away the profit that I could have taken right here. But on the flip side, if I didn't trail my stop and I just took my profit here and then the price kept running into that direction, then what would happen? Well, people would say, well, you left a bunch of profit on the table, right? So there's never a 100% winning approach to closing a good trade, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work as well. So in this case, we have a good problem to have. We have profit on the table, and I'm going to go ahead and lock in some of that by trailing the stop. That's what I'm choosing to do, and I'm going to stick to it because that's my plan. So let's go ahead and trail that stop, and we'll see what happens from here. Okay, so I've trailed my stop, and the point that I chose to put it at was right below some structure here. So there's two actually parts to this. So I mentioned that I'm going to be using the 20 period simple moving average, which is right around here, but you'll notice that my stop is actually kind of below that. So here's the big deal with this. I am looking to keep my structure in mind when placing my trailing stop. So I've got this area here of support. I've got this area here of support. This level here, generally speaking, was a pretty good level of support. So I want to give price the chance. If we do see a pullback, which I don't know is going to happen, but if we do see a pullback, I want to give price the best chance it can to hold support and continue to run. Again, my big thing with trailing stops is I don't want to be too close with my trailing stop, because I'm definitely going to get tagged out if I just put stops way too close. At that point, I might as well just go ahead and close the trade out right here at resistance. If I were to put a trailing stop up here, to me that's too close for comfort, and kind of defeats the purpose. The purpose for me with this trailing stop is basically to trail the trade enough so that the trade still has a chance to continue and has room to breathe, right? That right there, this price action could happen. And if that happens and I have a super tight stop, then I'll miss out on the continued trend because I'm being too sensitive and being too nervous about any sort of pullback, right? If we are gonna be following with the trend, if we're gonna let this trend continue, we have to be prepared for the trend to do trend things, which is to have normal pullbacks. Okay, so I've trailed my stop to this point here just below structure, as well as beneath this downward trend line, as well as that 20 period moving average, which I'm going to use as a general buffer for the direction of for location of my trailing stop. So from here, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to give this a little bit more time. We'll see where it goes. If it decides to break through the highs, then that would be great news, and at that point I would probably look to trail my stop once again, maybe up to some further structure. But we'll come back, we'll reevaluate, and continue to make the decision as to how we're going to manage the risk on this trade going forward. So stay tuned. Let's get into the next part. Okay, traders, so I just got back from running some errands, and what you'll see here is basically Aussie yen is out here for a total profit of roughly, let's see if we can use this tool. We had a profit here of just about 34, 35 pips. Now, I know that there are going to be comments that basically come in here, and again, they say you should have just held the trade, or you should have just taken the full take profit. And some people will even say, well, you knew that the price was going to fall once it came up to the top. Remember that earlier on, before I even knew what was going to happen with the trade, I mentioned that I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And when you're watching YouTube, a lot of times people will point out the things that you should have done as if it was fact, right? And so I want, for those of you guys who are traders, the reason I'm pointing that out so much is that it's important that you don't let other people's opinions or the things that they say get in the way of you sticking to your plan. So here on Aussie yen, basically we ended up taking a trailing stop there, which again earned us about 35 pips of profit. Maybe there was more to be had if I had taken profit on this account at the top, but on my other account, like I mentioned, the one that I shared with with the VIP members, the trade alert that I shared, the take profit was hit effectively right around this line that we talked about earlier on in the video. So again, not too bad, not too unhappy with the trade. It is what it is. Sometimes things are going to work out like this, where basically you try and trail a stop and you don't get the best exit, and it just kind of turns around and goes against you. Again, things were looking very bullish, things were looking very good until we hit that level of resistance. Price tagged it and did in fact fall more than I had anticipated. I was hoping that we could bust through this level and see that trailing stop continue to work in our favor. So with that said, guys, I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you learned from kind of the way I took this trade, how I entered the trade, and how I managed it. And although this is not the most glorious of trades to show on the internet, you know, we made a profit, yes, but it wasn't as much as it could have been, right? But those words are dangerous. Would have, should have, could have, all of those things are nice in hindsight. But when it actually comes down to being a trader and it's just you versus yourself, it's time to actually stick to a plan and do what it is, you know, do what's required to actually succeed in this. So we don't have hindsight on our favor. We stuck to the plan. Overall, I trailed my stop. And in this case, we only came out with 35 pips profit, but it's better than a loss. And we should just be grateful for what the market decided to give us in this particular trade. And guess what? In the future, we'll find trade setups that do better for us and let those winners run. Eventually, it will pay off. And that's generally how my short-term kind of momentum trades actually pay off in the long term. So stick around, guys, for more videos. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and we'll see you back in the next one.